Right.
As far as I know, also the most important issue on this summit will be to agree to a cooperation framework for the future of activities. Could you give us more detail on this cooperation framework?
Yeah, well, I think what we're looking at is any good practice that's going on throughout Europe. There's a number of things going on regarding education, housing, looking at how we integrate the Roma. Indeed, in my own authority in Salford in the UK, is this week we're having a big event of UK Roma, looking at their history and their culture, and we're doing that jointly with our twin city across the water, Manchester. So there are lots of issues going on, and of course we have the Roma DOS prize, which actually is presented by Congress for those authorities and those municipalities that are actually doing some outstanding work on the Roma issue. And we're hoping that this mayoral summit will actually focus the mind of many mayors across Europe, and obviously leaders of municipalities, to actually take the Roma issue serious and look at how we can actually work with them, and look at their human rights, and look at the lives that they have in their municipalities, and make those a better quality of life for all Roma, particularly the children.
I understood that the provisional program of the summit has just been finalized. Could you give us some details of this program?
Well, I think one of the things that we're looking at is rather than just having a day of talking, we're actually going to sit the mayors round tables and actually look at trying to do some sort of really interesting work, looking at coming up with ideas, fresh looks, looking at some of the things that haven't worked when we've been dealing with Roma. So, it's going to be a real summit with workshops, and looking at it, taking notes of what's been going on. And then obviously I'm looking at preparing a report for the Council of Europe at their plenary session in October, and some of the issues that we do take from the day will be integrated into that report.
I understand that there also will be Roma mayors and municipal regional councillors among the participants, or among the speakers, or among the participants. There will be Roma mayors who will deliver, who will share their experience. And my question would be, do we have a statistic? How many Roma mayors do you have among Council of Europe countries?
We're not sure of the exact number, but we know that there are quite a few, because obviously one of the things on the Congress of Europe is we look at local democracy, and I think one of the things that we really promote is getting everybody involved, no matter what their race, creed, colour, and it's fantastic that some Roma have actually got involved with their local communities and actually put themselves forward for election and have been elected as mayors and councillors, and so the ones that we do know of have been invited, and we're hoping that as many as possible come and actually put their points forward and tell us how it is in the real world, because they're living it day to day, looking at Roma issues within their own communities, but also they can tell us what it's like being a politician from that Roma community.
The Council of Europe Secretary General already held or already run that ministerial session on the Committee of Ministers on 11th of May. Do you intend to have during the Mayor Summit in September or in October?
In September. In September, the summit will take place.
September. Do you intend to have to share, to mix the experience from that summit with to apply it, or to share the experience or the ideas from that summit in Istanbul during the summit in Strasbourg in September?
Yeah, we'll certainly take that on board. I think we're looking at a number of issues. Is obviously with me being the rapporteur for the Roma 4 Congress, I've been to many meetings and met many Roma and shared their issues, and so it's just about this good sharing of good practice and sharing of things that haven't worked. And I think that it's really going to be one of those days where we can look at really putting some, how we say in the UK, is putting some meat on the bones and looking at actually spreading the good work that does go on with Roma. And I think that the thing for me is that it's important that we listen to the Roma people. You don't do things to people, you listen and consult and then put things in place. And that's why for me it's great that we've invited Roma politicians and people from the Roma community to come to that summit.
Speaking about the code of good practices, or to share of the good practices, I'm Romanian, and even though we sometimes during our history we had problems with between Roma and Romanians, actually we call them Țigan, gypsies. Mm-hmm. This name Roma, it's quite new. It's after the revolution, after the '89 revolution. We really don't know how this term appeared. However, the thing is that we, as far as I know, we have some good practices there. In the just few examples in the villages with big Roma communities, there is a Roma policeman. Also, there are special places for Roma in the universities. And do you, as far as you explored up to now, made some research, I assume that you made some research for this task that you have now, are there other countries where this kind of practices are in place?
Yeah, definitely. Recently was over in Poland. There's things going on in Poland. Obviously there's things going on in the UK that we do in the UK. There's been some good examples from France, from Spain. I've met many politicians and had good examples. But as I've said as well, is we want to know things that haven't worked so that we don't try them again and see that they don't work. And I think, you look right across Europe and there is some really good things going on regarding the Roma community. Indeed, last week I met a representative from Brno in the Czech Republic, and they actually have a Roma museum there where you can actually look at the history of Roma, how the Roma have been treated, and look at part of their culture. And I think, it's that message. I think some of it is the way that media and the press work. They give the Roma a bad deal. And I think, we want to look at the positive side and work with the Roma. They are recognised as a race and a culture, and they're certainly not thought of very well across Europe and discriminated against. And I think the things that we've got to do is actually work closely with Roma and work closely with local municipalities and politicians, to get them to recognise that they are a race of people and that we need to help work with them and integrate them into the communities that they're living in.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that you know that in Romania there is the biggest Roma community among the Council of Europe countries. We have, I believe, more than 1 million or even 2 million Roma. From your point of view and from Council of Europe and the Congress point of view, what should the Romanian authorities do more at this ground of the local community level?
I think one of the things that you have to do is look at housing issues. You have to look at education in particular. One of my pet subjects is the education of young people, and I think if you get young Roma people into schools, that starts helping the integration, because other young people from the indigenous community, get to see that they're just normal children like themselves. They may have different culture, but it's something that does work. We've seen it time and time again right across Europe that integration works through education, and so I think that we really do need to look at you know, the education system, looking at housing issues, looking at you know, how we get Roma to work and just to become part of that community, but without losing their culture and their identity.
Mm-hmm. What about the migration issue? Because Roma, we all know that there is the migration thing. The migration is something very specific to Roma community. And even though probably in time, in their nationality countries, they will have good conditions for life, houses, schooling and so on, they probably will prefer to travel because this is their way to live, to travel. And actually as you might know, the problems in Europe with Roma started with mobility, with the free mobility of Roma, and we had this. We experienced these problems in France. We experienced the problems in Italy and in other countries. What is it actually your effort will be also oriented to countries receiving Roma, also not only to the countries countries of Roma are citizens?
No, we're looking at all countries. Anybody that's a member state of the Congress of Europe, we're trying to work with all countries so that, you know, if they do get Roma coming travelling, because that's part of their culture, you know, they will know what to do. There will be somebody to turn to look at, again, as I've said, the good examples and the bad examples, and actually look at how they can work with Roma. And I think, you know, that because of the way that they're treated in the media and the press, people have only seen the negative side of the Roma population. You know, there's really good people when you get to know them, and it's just being able to understand their culture and their different outlook on life, and it's something that we actually have to work towards, and people have to learn to be more tolerant. You know, the discrimination that's gone on against Roma over hundreds of years, you know, it's something that's just unacceptable, and it's come to a head now, I think, with what happened a few summers ago across Europe, the way that Roma were being treated and the camps being bulldozed, etc. And I think, you know, that's sort of really set alarm bells going within the Congress. And Mr. Jagland and the President of the Council of Europe decided that we had to take action. You know, that's our role as the Congress, human rights and local democracy. And so, you know, we saw the way that Roma were being treated, and that's why it's such a hot subject at the moment.
Mm-hmm. My last question would be about the Mayor Summit in September. What are you expecting to have at the end of this event?
Again, I think it's good for mayors to come together from across Europe. I think, you know, it's not just going to be a talking shop. As I said, we're going to have workshops. And I think we're going to actually look at getting something together that we can share with the report that I'm taking to the Council of Europe in October. And also we're hoping that some legislation will come from it that countries can implement, and obviously through European Parliament and European law.
Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.